I'm listening. The voice on the radio offered solace to millions. Frasier is the pinnacle of sophistication and intellect, but behind the glasses of sherry and the luxurious apartment lie the brutal tragedies of real life. Kelsey Grammer's Frasier life is likened to a series of Greek tragedies, and the passing of Father John Mahoney left an unfillable void. The old armchair is now permanently empty. Let's tune in to the silent pain behind the laughter. Kelsey Grammer as Dr. Frasier Crane. Long before the Seattle skyline became his backdrop, Alan Kelsey. Grammer was a young man forged in the fires of personal tragedy and artistic ambition. Born in 1955 on the 21st day of February, he grew up carrying the weight of a family history that read more like a Greek tragedy than a sitcom script. By the time he walked onto the set of Cheers, the role that would eventually birth his own spin-off, he was a classically trained actor waiting for the world to notice his commanding voice. When Frasier finally premiered in the autumn of 1993, Grammer was 38 years old, standing at the precipice of television history, ready to take a character meant to be a temporary distraction and turn him into an American icon. Dr. Frasier Crane was a delicate balancing act of pomposity and vulnerability, a high society snob who desperately wanted to be loved. Grammer played him with a theatrical grandeur that made us forgive his arrogance, because we could see his heart breaking in real time. Whether he was fussing over a stain on a designer sofa or lamenting a disastrous date, Grammer infused the role with a frantic, operatic energy that defined the sitcom genre for a decade. He was the conductor of a chaotic symphony, his booming voice echoing through the apartment, making us laugh at his pretensions while secretly rooting for him to find the happiness that always seemed just out of reach. Yet behind the laughter of the studio audience lay a silence filled with profound sorrow. Grammer's life off-screen was a stark contrast to the privileged bubble of Frasier Crane. He endured the brutal murder of his younger sister Karen, a wound that never truly healed alongside the loss of his father and two half-brothers. These traumas fueled a struggle with substance abuse and health scares that often threatened to derail his career. While he played a man who analyzed the human mind, Grammer was fighting a private war to keep his own spirit from shattering under the weight of grief. His 4 marriages and legal battles were fodder for tabloids, but they were merely symptoms of a man searching for stability in a world that had taken so much from him. The curtain fell on Frasier in 2004, but the actor's journey was far from over. He stepped away from the radio microphone and reinvented himself time and again, taking on darker, grittier roles that showcased his dramatic range. He found a semblance of peace in his later years, embracing his role as a father to 7 children, and a grandfather, finally building the family unit he had yearned for. In a stunning return to form, he donned the psychiatrist's suit once more, reviving the character for a new generation on Paramount Plus in 2023, proving that some characters are simply too large to stay dormant. Today, on the last day of 2025, Kelsey Grammer stands as a titan of the industry. At 70 years old, he remains the beating heart of the franchise, a survivor who turned his personal pain into performance art. He is living proof that even after the darkest nights, the show must and does go on. David Hyde Pierce as Dr. Niles Crane. Before he became the other half of television's most famous sibling duo, David Pierce was a theater devotee with a sharp mind and a quiet intensity. Born in 1959 in the early days of April, he spent his youth honing a craft that relied on precision and subtlety. He was working steadily in the industry, yet remained relatively unknown to the massive television audiences of the time. It was a casting director's observation of his striking resemblance to Kelsey Grammer that changed his destiny. When the show premiered in 1993, he was just 34 years old, stepping into a role that wasn't even in the original pilot script, completely unaware that he was about to create one of the most beloved characters in history. Niles Crane was a marvel of physical comedy, a man who could elicit a roar of laughter simply by wiping a chair or fainting at the sight of blood. Pierce played him with a neurotic elegance, creating a character who was even more snobbish than Frasier, yet infinitely more fragile. His silent, years-long adoration for Daphne Moon became the show's emotional anchor, a masterclass in longing that required no dialogue to convey. We watched him struggle with his unseen tyrannical wife Maris, and we cheered for his eventual liberation. Pierce turned Niles into a sympathetic figure, proving that a character could be ridiculously elitist and deeply human, all at the same time. While Niles wore his heart on his impeccably tailored sleeve, David Hyde Pierce guarded his private life with fierce determination. For years during the show's run, he navigated the complexities of being a gay man in Hollywood during an era that was not always welcoming. He lived a life of quiet dignity, shielding his partner Brian Hargrove from the intrusive glare of the paparazzi until he felt the time was right to speak his truth. Furthermore, he carried a heavy familial burden. Watching his father and grandfather succumb to Alzheimer's disease ignited a fire in him. He became a tireless advocate for research, channeling his personal grief into a crusade to save memories for others, a battle fought far away from the sound stages of Los Angeles. After hanging up Niles's double-breasted suits, Pierce returned to his first love, the stage. He conquered Broadway, directing and acting, earning accolades that solidified his status as a true thespian. He shied away from the limelight, preferring the work over the celebrity. Recently, he delighted audiences by stepping back into television for the series Julia, bringing his signature charm to the role of Paul Child. He chose not to return for the Frasier revival, a decision made to protect the pristine legacy of his character's happy ending. As of December 31, 2025, David Hyde Pierce is 66 years old, living a life defined by artistic integrity and personal authenticity. He remains a beloved figure, remembered not just for the laughs he gave us, but for the grace with which he has lived his life, proving that sometimes the quietest voices resonate the loudest. Jane Leeves as Daphne Moon. Jane Elizabeth Leeves arrived in Hollywood with a dancer's discipline and a dreamer's resilience. Born in 1961 amidst the gray skies of April in Ilford, Essex, she grew up far removed from the glitz of American sitcoms. Her journey was physical. She started as a ballet dancer until an ankle injury shattered her dreams of the stage, forcing her to pivot toward acting. She worked her way through minor roles and music videos, a British expatriate trying to find her footing in a ruthless town. By the time she auditioned to play the live-in physical therapist in 1993, she was 32 years old, bringing with her an eccentric charm that was entirely her own. Daphne Moon was the warm hearth in a cold, modern apartment. Leeves played her with a mixture of working-class grit and ethereal whimsy, claiming to have psychic visions while scrubbing the floors. She was the only person who could cut through Frasier's bluster with a single sharp observation. Her chemistry with the cast was electric, and her oblivious relationship with the pining Niles became the romantic engine of the series. We loved her because she was us, the normal person surrounded by absurdity, yet she possessed a magic that made her extraordinary. She was the quirky glue that held the fractured Crane family together. Behind Daphne's sunny disposition, Leeves faced the immense pressures of being a woman in the public eye. The scrutiny on her physical appearance was relentless, and during the later seasons, her rapid weight loss became a topic of tabloid speculation and genuine concern among her castmates. It was a difficult period where the stress of fame manifested physically, requiring her to step back and prioritize her health. Furthermore, balancing new motherhood with a demanding shooting schedule tested her limits. Yet her bond with her co-stars was her salvation. Peri Gilpin was even in the delivery room with her, cementing a sisterhood that transcended the script. When the show ended, Leeves did not fade away. She transitioned seamlessly into the role of a television matriarch, starring in the hit show Hot in Cleveland, and later bringing gravity to the medical drama The Resident. She proved her versatility, shedding the quirky psychic persona to play strong, authoritative women. She also moved behind the scenes, forming a production company with her best friend Peri Gilpin, taking control of her own narrative in an industry that often discards women of a certain age. Today, Jane Leeves is 64 years old, a testament to longevity and grace. She remains a working actor, and a devoted mother, having successfully navigated the treacherous waters of Hollywood without losing her soul. Her legacy is one of warmth and resilience, reminding us that the girl from Essex conquered America on her own terms. Peri Gilpin as Roz Doyle. Peri K. Oldham Gilpin came from the heart of Texas, carrying a spirit as big as her home state. Born in 1961 in the heat of late May, she grew up in a family that appreciated the arts, but knew the sting of reality. She studied at the British American Drama Academy, refining a talent that was both raw and sophisticated. Before she sat behind the producer's glass partition, she was a working actress fighting for her break, originally reading for the role of Daphne before the producers realized her sharp wit was better suited for the producer. In 1993, at 32 years old, she donned the headset as Roz Doyle, ready to go toe-to-toe with Frasier Crane. Roz Doyle was a trailblazer, a sexually confident, career-driven single mother who never apologized for her lifestyle. Gilpin played her with a raspy-voiced cynicism that hid a heart of gold. She was the audience's surrogate, rolling her eyes at the Crane's elitism and grounding the show in the messy reality of dating and working. Her friendship with Frasier was one of the few purely platonic, deeply respectful male-female friendships on television. Gilpin made Roz a feminist icon of the 90s, a woman who owned her choices and stood tall in a male-dominated industry. While Roz dealt with bad dates, Gilpin was dealing with a lifetime of profound loss. Her father died in a skydiving accident when she was young, a sudden trauma that left a mark. But the tragedy continued. She lost her mother to leiomyosarcoma in 1997, right in the middle of her television success. The shadow of cancer haunted her family, claiming her sister and brother in later years. Her journey to motherhood was also fraught with heartache, involving a long struggle that eventually led to the joy of twins born via surrogate. Through it all, she had to maintain the tough comedic exterior of Roz, hiding her personal grief behind the character's sarcasm. Life after Frasier saw Gilpin continue to work steadily, lending her distinctive voice to animated characters and appearing in dramas like Make It or Break It. She became a fierce advocate for cancer research, turning her family's tragedy into a crusade for others. She remained inseparable from her co-star Jane Leeves, their friendship outlasting the show by decades. In a moment that thrilled fans, she returned to the Frasier revival, showing us a Roz who had evolved but lost none of her fire. At 64 years old as of late 2025, Peri Gilpin stands as a survivor in every sense of the word. She navigated the crushing waves of family loss with dignity, raising her daughters and sustaining a career in a fickle industry. She remains the cool, confident voice we all wish we had in our ear, telling us everything is going to be all right. John Mahoney as Martin Crane. Charles John Mahoney lived a life that was a story unto itself long before he ever saw a script. Born in 1940 in Blackpool, England, to escape the Blitz, he grew up in a war-torn world that instilled in him a deep appreciation for peace and stability. He immigrated to the United States at 19, serving in the military and working as a medical journal editor, suppressing his artistic dreams for decades. He did not even begin his professional acting career until he was 37, a late bloomer who brought a lifetime of real-world experience to the stage. When cast as the retired cop Martin Crane in 1993, he was 53 years old, bringing a gravelly authenticity that no younger actor could fake. Martin Crane was the soul of Frasier. With his hideous striped chair and his faithful dog Eddie, he represented the blue-collar common sense that his sons had abandoned. Mahoney played him not as a caricature of a grumpy old man, but as a father trying to reconnect with children he barely understood. His timing was impeccable, his scowl legendary, but it was the moments of quiet tenderness that defined him. He grounded the show, reminding us that beneath the sherry and the opera, this was a story about a family trying to heal old wounds. Mahoney was an intensely private man, guarding his solitude as fiercely as Martin guarded his chair. He never married and had no children, often citing a fear of unhappy marriages he had witnessed growing up. Despite the immense fame the show brought him, he remained in his beloved Chicago, refusing to succumb to the Hollywood lifestyle. In his later years, his body began to fail him. He fought a quiet, painful battle with throat cancer, a diagnosis he kept largely out of the public eye. The voice that had delivered so many iconic lines was slowly being stolen by disease, a cruel irony for an actor of his caliber. After the show ended, Mahoney returned to the theater, his true home, delivering powerful performances on the Chicago stage. He worked sporadically in television, appearing in Treatment and Hot in Cleveland alongside his old friend Jane Leeves. But the cancer returned complicated by other health issues. On February 4, 2018, the world lost a giant. John Mahoney passed away at the age of 77 years old. Even now, in 2025, his absence is felt in every frame of the Revival series where the local bar is named in his honor. He left behind a legacy of kindness and humility remembered by his castmates not just as a father figure on screen, but as a father figure in life. Bebe Neuwirth as Dr. Lilith Sternin. Beatrice Jane Neuwirth was born a dancer with rhythm in her blood and steel in her spine. Born in 1958 on New Year's Eve, she was destined to make an entrance. Her early years were disciplined, spent at the bar, perfecting the movements that would later define her physical command of the stage. She was a creature of the theater, a Broadway sensation long before she was a household name. When she first brought Lilith to Cheers and subsequently to Frasier, she was 35 years old in 1993, possessing a deadpan delivery so precise it felt like a weapon. Lilith Sternin was the ultimate foil, brilliant, icy, and terrifyingly competent. Neuwirth played her with a rigidity that was hilarious in its intensity, creating a character who was entirely devoid of warmth, yet fascinating to watch. Her banter with the cast was razor-sharp. She was the only one who could intellectually dismantle Frasier and Niles without breaking a sweat. Despite her robotic exterior, Neuwirth infused Lilith with a strange, fierce sexuality and a deep, albeit clinical love for her son and ex-husband. She turned a monster ex-wife trope into a three-dimensional beloved character. The severe bun and pale skin of Lilith masked a woman of wild, rebellious spirit. As a teenager, Neuwirth was far from the rule follower she played on TV. She was once arrested at 13 for smoking marijuana, a glimpse into a youth that chafed against authority. Throughout her career, she struggled against the industry's desire to put her in a box. Being so convincing as the Ice Queen meant fighting to be seen as the vibrant, emotional dancer and singer she truly was. She endured 2 marriages, navigating the complexities of love, while the world assumed she was as cold as her character. Neuwirth never slowed down. She continued to dominate Broadway, winning Tony Awards and cementing her status as a legend of the stage. She seamlessly transitioned into dramatic television roles in shows like Madam Secretary and Blue Bloods, proving her range went far beyond comedy. In recent years, she delighted fans by reprising Lilith in the Frasier revival, showing that time had not dulled her sharp edges. Today, Bebe Neuwirth is 67 years old, a vibrant force in the entertainment industry. She remains a symbol of artistic discipline and versatility, a woman who embraced a severe character and played her with such brilliance that she became unforgettable. She is the queen of deadpan, still dancing to her own rhythm. Moose as Eddie. Moose began his life not as a star, but as a problem. Born in 1990 on Christmas Eve, he was the puppy no one could handle. His original owners found his energy destructive and his behavior unmanageable, giving him up because he was simply too much. It was this very intensity that a trainer saw as potential. He was channeled, not tamed, turning his destructiveness into focus. When Frasier premiered, Moose was 3 years old, a bundle of kinetic energy restrained only by the command of action. Eddie was more than a pet. He was a character with agency. Moose played him with a stoic brilliance, engaging in staring contests with Frasier that became the stuff of legend. He provided the visual gags that broke up the verbal wit, a necessary clown in the highbrow circus. His ability to hit his marks and convey emotion, be it boredom, judgment, or hunger, was uncanny. Millions of viewers tuned in just to see what the dog would do next, making him one of the most famous animals in television history. However, the life of a dog star is complicated. Moose was a professional often described by cast members as indifferent to affection when the cameras weren't rolling. He was there to work, not to cuddle. As he aged, the demands of the show became too much. His own son Enzo was bred to replace him, creating a strange dynamic where the father was slowly phased out by his own progeny. Reports suggested that Moose and Enzo did not get along, a canine rivalry that mirrored the complexities of the show itself. Moose spent his final years in retirement, his coat turning white, his energy finally fading. Moose retired from the screen as the show neared its end, passing the torch fully to Enzo. He lived out his days in the California sun, away from the studio lights and the applause. He passed away on June 22, 2006, at the ripe old age of 15 years old, a long life for a terrier. Though he has been gone for nearly 2 decades, Moose's legacy endures. He triggered a massive surge in the popularity of Jack Russell Terriers across America. He remains the gold standard for animal acting, a testament to the fact that sometimes the biggest presence in the room is the smallest one. Dan Butler as Bob Bulldog Briscoe. Dan Butler entered the acting world with a versatility that allowed him to vanish into characters. Born in 1954 in the early winter of December, he grew up in an era where masculinity was rigidly defined. He built a career as a solid character actor capable of playing intensity and aggression. When he joined the cast of Frasier, he was 39 years old, hired to play a recurring character that was intended to be a one-note joke about sports radio culture, but he brought such a ferocious energy that he became indispensable. Bulldog. Briscoe was a hurricane of misogyny, sports metaphors, and loud noises. Butler played him with a reckless abandon, barking at guests and hiding from responsibility. Yet underneath the macho posturing, Butler revealed glimpses of a pathetic, lonely man who used aggression as a shield. He made a character who should have been detestable into someone strangely lovable, a man-child who was constantly seeking approval in all the wrong ways. His chaotic energy provided the perfect friction against Frasier's refined sensibilities. The irony of Dan Butler's performance was profound. While he played the ultimate womanizing bro on screen, in real life, Butler was a gay man navigating a Hollywood that was still uncomfortable with openness. He was living a double life of sorts, projecting toxic heterosexuality for laughs, while writing and performing a one-man show, The Only Thing Worse You Could Have Told Me, which explored the painful and poignant realities of the gay experience. He had to compartmentalize his identity, playing a caricature of the very men who might have ostracized him in the real world. After leaving the sports desk, Butler continued to work across film and television, often playing serious roles that contrasted sharply with Bulldog. He embraced his identity fully, marrying his partner Richard Waterhouse in 2010. He moved away from the superficiality of Los Angeles to find peace in Vermont for a time, focusing on theater and writing. He remains a working actor, appearing in gritty dramas like The Blacklist, proving his range extends far beyond comedy. Now, at 71 years old, Dan Butler is a respected elder statesman of the theater and screen. He is celebrated not just for the laughs he generated, but for the courage it took to live his truth. He turned a stereotype on its head, leaving a legacy of complexity behind the caricature. Edward Hibbert as Gil Chesterton. Edward Hibbert was born into the arts, the son of an actor destined for the stage. Born in 1955 in September, he possessed a transatlantic quality that made him seem from another time. He built a career that straddled 2 worlds, that of an actor and that of a literary agent. Before he took his seat at KACL, he was already an award-winning stage actor. In 1993, at 38 years old, he stepped into the shoes of Gil Chesterton, bringing a polished, biting wit that rivaled even the Cranes. Gil Chesterton was a masterpiece of camp. Hibbert played him with a fluttery, fastidious energy, delivering insults about food and fashion with the precision of a sniper. The running gag about his character's hidden sexuality and his unseen wife, Deb, provided some of the show's funniest subtext. Hibbert made Gil a worthy adversary for Frasier, a man who could out-snob the snob. Every scene he was in felt like a mini-play, his diction crisp, his mannerisms larger than life. Hibbert's life was a constant balancing act. While he was making millions laugh on TV, he was simultaneously working a day job as a high-powered literary agent representing authors like Chuck Palahniuk. He lived with one foot in the fantasy of Hollywood and the other in the grinding reality of the publishing industry. This dual existence required immense energy and focus. Like many character actors, he faced the struggle of being recognized for a specific flamboyant persona while possessing the depth of a serious dramatic artist. He navigated a career where he was often the funny side character, fighting for the spotlight that he deserved. Hibbert continued his unique double career long after the show wrapped. He remained a force in the literary world while continuing to grace the Broadway stage in productions like The Drowsy Chaperone. He never abandoned Gil, however. He returned for the Frasier revival in 2024, sliding back into the character as if no time had passed. He proved that style never goes out of fashion. As of late 2025, Edward Hibbert is 70 years old. He stands as a unique figure in entertainment, a man who succeeded in two ruthlessly competitive industries simultaneously. His legacy is one of wit, style, and the enduring power of a perfectly delivered insult. Saul Rubinek as Donny Douglas. Saul Rubinek's story began in the shadow of history's darkest chapter. Born in 1948 in a refugee camp in Fürstenwald, Germany, he was the son of Holocaust survivors. His life began with the weight of survival and displacement, emigrating to Canada as an infant. This background instilled in him a profound depth and a storytelling drive. He became a fixture in Canadian and American cinema, a character actor known for his intelligence. He joined the cast later in the series around 1999, when he was approximately 50 years old, tasked with being the obstacle to the fans' deepest desire. Donny Douglas was everything the Cranes were not messy, unrefined, and approachable. Rubinek played him with such genuine warmth and decency that the audience found themselves conflicted. We wanted Niles and Daphne to be together, but we didn't want Donny to be hurt. He was a brilliant lawyer disguised as a slob, a man of integrity who loved Daphne fiercely. Rubinek's performance elevated what could have been a villainous role into a tragic figure, the good man who simply wasn't the right man. Rubinek carried the intergenerational trauma of the Holocaust with him. His parents' survival was a miracle that defined his worldview. He channeled this history into his book and his documentary work, constantly grappling with the themes of memory and loss. Being a comedic actor while carrying such a heavy historical legacy was a private dichotomy. On set, he had to play the romantic rival in a show where the outcome was predetermined. He knew his character was destined for heartbreak, a professional duty to be the man left at the altar. After his heart was broken on screen, Rubinek's career continued to flourish. He became a familiar face in science fiction and drama, bringing gravitas to Warehouse 13 and recently fighting Nazis in the series Hunters. He continued to write and direct, using his platform to tell stories that mattered. He remained a working actor's actor, respected for his craft and his intellect. Today, Saul Rubinek is 77 years old. He is a survivor, a storyteller, and a man who brought immense heart to a sitcom role that required him to lose. His legacy is not just in his acting, but in his commitment to remembering the past while creating art for the future. The skyline has dimmed and the sherry bottle is empty. Standing here in late 2025, the silence in the Crane apartment is deafening. We mourn the devastating loss of John Mahoney and the beloved Moose, and we honor the fragile strength of Kelsey Grammer, who turned a life of personal horror into pure art. They taught us that even in a world of high intellect, it is the messy, imperfect human heart that matters most. Good night, Seattle. We love you.